Just a few days after Max Verstappen's sweetest 16th win of the season and the scene of Sergio Perez's heartbreak at the Mexican Grand Prix, we come to the vibrant city of Sao Paulo in Brazil, a nation that has produced 3 world champions. It's a sprint weekend and the last of this incredible triple header. It's almost time for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Hello and a warm welcome to the Interlagos circuit here in Sao Paulo for this, our last race weekend of this triple header, and just 2 more to come after this as well of the 2023 season. Alongside me, we welcome, a big warm welcome for the F1 TV family to Julien Simon-Chautemps alongside me, 15 years a race engineer in Formula 1, including having to put up with our very own Jolyon Palmer. And of course, we welcome back James Hinchcliffe as well. How are you doing, chaps? Julien, coming to you first, a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be with you guys, and we'll have fun, I'm sure.
We are going to have a lot of fun. And look, this is a sprint weekend as well. And so as a race engineer, your insight is going to be crucial, isn't it? What are we looking out for?
Well, sprint weekend, you have to realize, as an engineer, I used to love it. Why? But simply A, because it's different. It was different to the norm. And B, because you have basically one session on Friday. You have 1 hour to set up your car, set up the blanking, set up the cooling, set up the plank wear. We've seen in Austin created a lot of problem to the teams. And then immediately it's qualifying. And then that's it. The car is in park for me. You can't touch it anymore. So for me, it's a great format, and I used to love it as an engineer. Yeah,
the jeopardy as well for us. We love it. The teams find it a bit of a nightmare. I love to hear that you actually enjoyed it.
I was just going to say, it sounds like everything you just said, it sounds like an engineer's nightmare to me.
Well,
engineers want more track time and more than
engineers usually they don't like change and so on. But I did like it. So
there you go. I love a rogue engineer here. I like that. I like it.
Do get in touch if you love a sprint weekend as well. Hashtag F1 Live. And Hinch, we welcome you back as well. You'll be with us in Vegas as well, which is going to be a mighty, mighty race. But first here to Interlagos, and what a track this is. I mean, I bet you're itching to get out there.
I am. I'm bummed we don't have a hot laps quiz this week.
No, cancel the hot lap quiz.
Oh, we're doing it in Vegas.
Never again. I was so unwell and so deranged in the car.
Doing it in 2 weeks, sorry. Sorry, so start preparing now, mentally and physically, for 2 weeks. But no, this one I've always wanted to come to as a fan, just because, the passion the Brazilian fans have for motorsports is so much fun. And as a driver, this is one of the ones that drivers love. They talk about it all the time. I haven't had the pleasure of going around it yet, but maybe I'll try to sneak into the safety car at some point.
Come with you.
This session. Yeah. We're going to steal the medical car and go for a few laps.
So when I lose, you two, and I'm here hosting on my own, I'll know where you are. You're doing laps around this great track.
Exactly.
Oh, it's going to be special. And I think the weather's going to be a bit of a talking point as well for this weekend. At the moment, it's kind of muggy and sticky, but there's a bit of a cool breeze. I think we've got a bit of an orange alert for some storms. Kind of coming in towards Friday, though. What's the weather saying for you, Julien?
Well, my forecast say we should have some rain at some point between Friday and Saturday, and depending where, we don't really know. Here is very unpredictable. I remember races here being on the grid. You go on the grid, it's sunny, and suddenly end of the world, cloud, change tires, and so on. So it's very unpredictable, but that's what makes this race so special,
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the news, there's been plenty of news coming into this race weekend, plenty of rumours as well. We'll get onto that in just a mo. But the concrete factual news was that Mike Elliott has made the decision to leave Mercedes. 11 years there, of course, 8 constructor titles, 7 driver titles as well. Hinch, that's a big loss for the team, isn't it? And he's just taking some time out to figure out what he's doing next.
Yeah, 11 years on the road doing F1, I get it. I mean, it totally makes sense. Obviously not a decision you come to lightly. A position like that is not one you want to give up easily, especially after all the success they've had. And I think what's important, though, it is a big position to lose and to have to fill. But at the same time, a team like Mercedes is built around a lot of people. It's not one person that drives that success. So if there's one organization here that I'm confident can find either a quick replacement or kind of reshuffle to cover the responsibilities there, it would be that one. The way Toto runs his teams, it wouldn't be a surprise. They almost, are prepared for it in the best possible way and can move right along, as we see one of their drivers going by now. But yeah, definitely big news in the paddock, and the team will for sure miss him.
Yeah, George Russell, just coming through shot there, the winner, of course, of last year's race here. That was Mercedes' first win of 2022, and indeed their last win since then as well. But they have won 6 of the last 8 races here in Brazil, and Lewis Hamilton was such a special affinity to this place as well. He came in today, draped in sort of almost the Brazilian flag, Senna on his back as well. It's a special place for Mercedes. And what do you make of their form, Julien, coming in?
Well, they clearly made a huge improvement over the season. Now, we remember last year was really difficult. They started the year also on the back foot. They reverted the concept of a zero pod that they created last year, and they are making progress. Step by step, they are getting there, and we can see, and it's good to see because the team have huge resources. They clearly know what they are doing, and it's good to see that they are there. Last year they won, they did 1-2 if I remember well. So it's clearly a track that Lewis enjoy really, really well. So I'm sure they will do well.
Yeah, winning both the sprint and the Grand Prix as well. It'll be an exciting weekend for Mercedes, and several teams actually predicting that they will be the ones to take it to Red Bull here, and that is where the fight for this win is going to be. A good weekend, therefore, for us to have both a feature interview with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell coming up in our broadcast over the course of the weekend. You may have thought, as we're already starting to talk about the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, that we have forgotten to do our 60-second recap, but oh no, James Hinchcliffe does not get away with it that easy. We're sparing you for your first weekend with us here, Julien.
Okay.
Hinch, over to you. 60-second recap on the Mexican Grand Prix.
I didn't get that same treatment my first weekend, but that's fine. That's fine. So here we go. Last week, Mexico City. A lot of anticipation for the race. The start, Ferrari front row, big surprise, but it was the Red Bulls that launched off the line so incredibly well. Max splitting the Ferraris for the lead, but it was his teammate Checo trying to be the hero on the outside. Home race, going for the win. That contact was going to put him out of the race. It was a huge upset for the Mexican fans. Couple drivers starting out of place, and this was the biggest moment of the Grand Prix. Mechanical failure caused by an overheating left rear brake caused Kevin Magnussen into the wall. Red flag means a restart. Front row started on hards. That gave Max another great opportunity to get ahead, but it's all about the medium tire runners, the ones that went for it. Guys like Lewis Hamilton, guys like Yuki Tsunoda, so close to pulling off of from the back to points, but this man here, Lando Norris, put on an absolute clinic, 17th up to 5th. It was action-packed the whole way through, but at the end of the day, there was no stopping Max Verstappen. 14-second victory, despite a red flag at half distance. Absolutely dominant performance, but again, Lewis Hamilton on the podium, second weekend in a row on track. So, like you say, could be a good sign for his form this weekend.
Absolutely. That was decent. Very well done.
Well, thank
Hinch.
you.
I loved it.
I'm working on it.
Julien, next race, it'll be down to you.
Start preparing.
Okay.
Julien's
I will
like,
start learning
I won't
from
be coming
already.
back. Yeah, you are a commentator, producer Joe just pointing out, so you have a kind of advantage.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Okay. Looking, though, at that race, and this is a stat courtesy of Nadeem, who is one of our staff writers here for this weekend. You'll be hearing his interviews throughout this show and indeed the weekend as well. Max Verstappen has won 84% of all races this year. 84%. I mean, he is relentless, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, the car is fantastic, clearly, but he's as well, he doesn't make any mistake. Have you noticed? He's incredible. He's very quick. He's clearly in huge confidence with the team. Doesn't put a single foot wrong. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, nothing to say. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, talking about putting a foot wrong, I mean, my goodness me, absolute heartbreak for Sergio Perez. Last time out in Mexico, his home race over at turn 1. I spoke to him a little bit earlier on in the media pen. Well, Checo, I guess, how have you been since Mexico? As a human and a racing driver, how do you deal with what's happened and bounce back here?
I was sad on Monday for half a day, more or less, and then I put it behind me. I'm a sportsman, and I know how this goes, and with the passion I live my career, and just put it behind me, and had my head high because I gave my best, and proud of that, and now looking forward for the last 3 races.
And what are the hopes here in Brazil as well? It's a sprint weekend, and certainly looking at parts of Mexico, you have some pace as well.
Yes, I think the last 2 races have been really positive. We haven't managed to really put it together, but I think, we definitely have made a lot of progress, and I'm optimistic for this weekend to finally get to show the pace that we have.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Oh, well, steely focus, full fight, full passion from Sergio Perez, but will it be enough, James Hinchcliffe? Red Bull saying it is our intention that Sergio Perez will be in that seat in 2024, and that should squash one of the rumours that we've seen flying around on social media for this weekend. Intention, probably the key word there, though.
Yeah, it's interesting language to use in this situation. They've done nothing but support him publicly, certainly, all season long, ever since the kind of issues happened after really Miami. But Mexico was a heartbreak. I think we saw the start of a turnaround in form in Austin. It had taken another step. He was only a tenth and a half off Max in qualifying last weekend. Obviously, the race didn't go to plan, but look, first lap racing incidents happen. For sure, it's going to hurt, but I think he needs, like 3 podiums in the next 3 races.
He needs a good weekend. He needs a clean weekend to come back. But it's very, very difficult at the moment. When you see your teammate winning everything, you know you have the best car, and you can't just do the job, basically, because that's what's happening. And Checo is quick. He's not a slow driver, but he's struggling. He's struggling a lot.
And look, we can't actually just compare Sergio Perez now to Max Verstappen, his teammate. We have to compare him to Lewis Hamilton, who is just 20 points behind in the driver standings. And that P1 and P2 is something that Red Bull have never achieved and desperately want to. And that's kind of the benchmark that he has to achieve to make sure he's in with any of us a chance of staying in that seat through 24. But Lewis Hamilton at the moment, very much outscoring him by an average of 7 points a weekend, Julien.
No, absolutely. So, and Lewis is doing a good job on that. It's very important. But I just want to come back quickly on Sergio Perez, because as a team, I've been in a team for 15 years, they have zero interest at all not to give him a maximum support. You know what I mean? It's not in their interest. So they want to do the 1-2, so I'm sure they will give him the maximum support on this side. And regarding Lewis, he's doing a fantastic job. So he can go back there, and then this weekend is the weekend where you can make a difference because of the weather, because of the changeable conditions, so he can get big points.
Vital, really, for both drivers,
Absolutely.
certainly for Sergio Perez, absolutely. And look, on the sister team, we have to talk about Daniel Ricciardo. What a performance from him. If you had him in your F1 fantasy team, I'm sure he did well for you. I did not. I had Yuki Tsunoda. We'll talk about that another time. Don't mention it to Sam Collins. But Julien, Ricciardo, that was the performance almost of old, wasn't it?
I know. It was, clearly, you have to realize in Mexico is a very specific track. So I don't want to remove anything from Daniel. He's a great driver. He's a fantastic driver. But maybe he has also something to prove. Maybe. Have you thinking about that? Maybe he wants to prove that, he's there and he's he's not the new kid on the block. He doesn't have anything to prove. But on the other hand, he wants to show to everyone that he's still there. And this car, the AlphaTauri, clearly worked very, very well in Mexico. That is a very specific track. It's very smooth. Very high in altitude, lower density, so the cars are working a bit differently than other tracks. So he's doing well, and he can do well very on this track as well. So
I guess we'll see if the improvements are here too, then it's the car and not just track specific. Are they the 7th fastest car now? Just 16 points lie between P7 and P10 in the constructor standings.
Probably a little too early to tell. They've brought some upgrades. A lot of them came when Daniel was out with his broken hand. Austin was tough because it was a sprint weekend. Obviously, we saw that pace, but as you just said, it's a very specific track. Do I think they're going to be qualifying in the top 5 here? No, I don't. But there's potential that, Yuki was on for a good points result. He did get in the points in Austin. So there's a potential. It's a points winning car. I'm not sure if it's, exactly where it stacks up in that kind of 7th to 10th battle. Yeah,
we'll see. And I guess, like we said, this could be proof whether the car has taken that leap forward it needs to, or whether Mexico is a bit of an outlier. Well, Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, source of rumours, all being quashed by Red Bull. Aston Martin also very keen to squash any rumours that Fernando Alonso is going anywhere. And I spoke to him purely on what's going to happen this weekend in the pen a bit earlier on. Well, Fernando, a double DNF last time out for the team, and then a fair few rumours on social media as well. How does a man of your experience stay focused and ensure the team around you are able to bounce back at the end of a pretty intense triple header?
Yeah, very intense, and as you said, the double DNF in Austin and Mexico, it hurts a lot. But we have another chance here in Brazil. I'm happy that it's a triple header, because you don't have time to feel the pain. You immediately jump in the car and you try again. And I think it's going to be a better weekend. Hopefully, this one with less experiments and more straightforward.
Talking of experiments then, what have you learned to bring into this weekend to hopefully ensure, as you say, a better weekend? But obviously, it's also a sprint weekend and at a track as well that I know you have very fond memories of.
Yeah, sprint weekend obviously doesn't allow you to experiment anymore. It's only one free practice. So from the last 2 races, we have a lot of information, a lot of data. We use all of that information to start tomorrow with the best package that we have at the moment for this type of track. And I'm confident that we can have a good weekend. I think obviously it looks disappointed in the last two, but 3 races ago in Qatar I started P4 and finished P6. So I tend to think that the last 2 events were not normal, and we will go back to a top 10 performance here.
Great stuff. Thank you. It's sort of true, isn't it? I think Formula One does have quite a short memory. This is a team that has gone from P7 to P5, and he's right. In Qatar, they were up there, but it's been a disappointing downturn of form. And look, you come off the back of a double DNF weekend. Team personnel working, through the night, odd hours, offset schedules, wake up on Monday morning to rumours on social media that the team has been sold or that, Fernando Alonso is leaving. What does that kind of thing do to team personnel who may already be at a pretty low ebb after a run of not so great results?
Well, I've been in exactly the same situation 10 years ago when I was in Lotus. Kimi was there. What you have to realize is that the race team is 100 people. But the whole team is nearly 1,000 people these days, so it's not only the racing, so it's a huge amount of people. And I remember these rumors in Lotus at the time that the team had bonnet problem and they were about to close and everything, and we were not aware at all of that. There was no communication at all. And it all came out of the rumors, and it had consequences that were disastrous for the team, you know what I mean? When you're flat out all day working, on top of that, the car is not performing. On top of that, you're hearing this news is catastrophic for a team, for the mental and for everything. So.
And you got to think, you talk about the people involved in a race team. One of the most important relationships is that driver-engineer one. So in this situation, there's got to be a lot of trust between a driver and his engineer. So if you hear news like that, it's not coming from them. Does it almost feel like a betrayal of that trust, that they're not being open and honest with you about how they feel and what they might be doing?
Yeah, because you don't know what's happening. You don't know where is the truth, as long as you don't have an official communication from the team. But yeah, you're completely right, James. The relationship between race engineer and driver is absolutely essential in this job. It's like an all-married couple, basically, and you can hear a lot. When I was with Kimi, we were shouting at each other. Well, he was shouting more at me than the opposite. But anyway, you hear a lot of this situation where the race engineer, they have some, in the time of the moment, they have this kind of, they fight, but it's part of the show, it's part of the business, and it's nothing personal, you know what I mean? It's just, we have a lot of pressure, a lot of adrenaline, and that's what the show is. So.
And you almost have to be able to engineer the driver as much as you do the car, don't you? It's such a mental game. And
well, I will tell you something. For me, people ask me, what makes a good race engineer? And I always reply, communication, and try to understand the psychology of the guy, So
Right.
It's much more communication and understanding the human. Obviously, you need to be a technical guy, you need to understand the technique, but the part of the communication and understanding someone, you can get much more out of a human than out of data and numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating to hear, actually, the driver-engineer relationship. I'm sure you two could talk for hours on that and the nuances and the complexities of it and what brings out the best performance. But look, we can't lie. The performance for Aston Martin has not been where it was at the start of the season. They almost sort of dug their own grave in that sense in being so extraordinary through the first half. Tina Gade will be looking at the car's development over the course of this season throughout our broadcast this weekend as well. Indeed, McLaren have had the opposite season, a terrible start by their own very high standards, and then coming through in the latter stages to be the best performing team. Lando Norris, driver of the day in Mexico. They've leapfrogged Aston Martin up to 4th. That second stint, Hinch, for Lando Norris was absolutely extraordinary, wasn't it? He was pulling moves all over the place.
It makes me sad that we didn't get to see him qualify, where he should have, and what he really could have done. That performance was so incredible because that track, everybody talks about how difficult it is to pass, just in general, but then you add into the fact all that temperature management that drivers were having to do, lifting, coasting for engine temps, for brake temps. You need all that throttle all the way to the end of the straightaway in order to make pass attempts. He never sat behind cars long enough to have that hot air coming off the car be an issue. He was up to them and he was by them so quickly. They made a great call on that medium tire for the restart, which was kind of split up and down the grid. We saw the medium ended up being the right call. He made it last, but man, he was just chewing guys up and getting rid of them so quickly. Racecraft was incredible, but race management within his own car as well, just next level. It was truly, it could arguably be one of his best drives of his career.
He's driving like a race winner. I think there's no doubt about that. That's what we're seeing from Lando Norris. But he is yet to have that elusive race win. And it's a case, he said it himself, himself of shoulda, woulda, coulda at the moment. There's missed opportunities out there. And on the other side of the garage, Julien, he's being pushed by his rookie teammate. And for Oscar Piastri, look, first time here, he's got to get on top of this track quick. He's got 1 hour to do so, and he's still got to work on tyre management, similarly from what we're seeing on the other side of the garage with Lando.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to realize that Oscar won everything before arriving in F1. He had Palmares, he won F3 the first year, F2 the first year, so he arrived in F1. He was one of the biggest talents we have seen probably the last 10 years. And then on top of that, yes, it's true they have only 1 hour for the session, but A, is quick, B, they will have done hours in the simulator to prepare for this event, so he will arrive on the track already knowing where to turn the wheels, you know what I mean? So I have no doubt that after few laps, he will already be on the pace. So
yeah, absolutely. And Oscar in the pen earlier on with me was sort of chuckling to himself at the challenge that lies ahead, but I kind of feel like he relishes it. And speaking to the team, they say he's the very definition of calm, not relaxed. And I think that sums up Oscar Piastri. We heard it on the race radio last time out when Yuki Tsunoda obviously turned in that racing moment. And Piastri simply, contact, the calmest race radio in comparison. And that's a sign of his class, certainly as a rookie, when temperament will be a bit all over the place. McLaren are now 20 points clear of Aston Martin and climbing. They are behind Ferrari, though. Leclerc is chasing Norris down for P6, and Carlos Sainz is in P4 in the driver standings at the moment. But Hinch, yet again, and even in speaking to Carlos earlier on in the pen, what we are seeing is Ferrari have an issue with race pace. They have an issue when it comes to Sunday. We're seeing blistering qualifying performances, pole positions from the two of them, but it's translating it into Sunday. It's still the thorn in their side.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you go back to Austin and you want to be technical about it, Max had a pole lap that got done for track limits. The race pace there, that is a high degradation track. We know that's their weakness. You go to Mexico, pole was a surprise for everybody, them included.
Even for them.
Yeah, it's almost especially for them. I mean, when we talked to Charles afterwards, he was like, I don't know how that happened. And so I think if you had told them after FP2, hey, you guys are going to end up third and fourth in the race, they'd be like, all right, this is good. That's a solid sign of progression. So I don't think they can be too upset with how the race played out. Do they have Mercedes race pace? No. Obviously, no one has Red Bull race pace. McLaren's race pace, certainly, with Lando, they're probably still behind them as well. But well, I guess we'll see. It's going to be tight. Lando's on a charge. He wants to try to get up a little bit higher. They're chasing them in the Constructors' Championship. There's still a lot to play for between those two teams.
And look, Christian Horner as well, just stirring the pot, as we know he loves to do, saying that Mercedes got lucky with the red flag, and actually he feels Ferrari could have got them had the race played out without that red flag. We'll never know. That's Christian Horner versus Toto Wolff, and we're just here loving it. We'll move to Alpine now. Let's hear from both drivers.
Podium here in 2019. This is a great track. How does it feel to be back in Brazil?
It's always fantastic to be back here. It's my friends sent me over the videos of the finish with Lewis. I think every single year they always send me back positive energy and keep going through it. And it was incredible. To get my first podium here in Brazil was very special. Every time I come to the track, just driving down the road, I just remember all the emotions I had. So, great track, very good rhythm, especially second sector. Really love it. So, looking forward to see what we will be able to achieve this year with Alpine.
What do you think you can achieve this weekend? You guys have been in the points regularly recently.
Yeah, I think, we sort of back of the top 10, and now I'm even confused with the order, because last weekend you see AlphaTauri flying, you see Alfa Romeos were very strong. Aston, it's up and down all the time, so I don't really know, and I think we just need to try to start in the best way we can. It's only one practice session, it's quite difficult, but hopefully it can be a strong weekend for us.
Thank you. Hi Esteban, how are you? Brazil, back here again. You had a good year last year. How's it feel to be back here, back in this track? What are you expecting this weekend?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's amazing to be back in Brazil. The support I got here every year, it's just incredible. And it's a fantastic track, very old school track that we all enjoy, racing on. We had a good year for sure last year. It was a solid result on Sunday and also in qualifying. So hopefully, we are going to be, efficient and have as good result as last year.
I mean, this year hasn't gone the way you would have liked it to. You've had some really bad luck, but you've also scored points when you finish the race. I mean, how are you feeling personally within the car, within the team at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I feel good at the moment. I feel good with how I'm driving and how I'm performing as well. It's true that we've been unlucky quite a bit. We had a lot of DNFs, and that has cost us in the end. But the important for us is to keep pushing and reflect on the good times. When we finish the races, and we had a lot of them. So we can be coming into this weekend being happy and looking forward to a good one.
I mean, your competition as well for this weekend, where do you...
Sorry?
Your competition for this weekend, who are you sort of aiming at? Is there a position you have in mind? Who are you looking to challenge this weekend, with the sprint weekend as well?
The top 10, is where we are aiming. We need to be scoring in both, hopefully in the sprint as well. And if we can do that, it would be a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, we'll see where Alpine are this weekend. Are you okay? It's doing well. Okay. You were speaking to some personnel earlier on, weren't you? What's the general feeling within the team here? Obviously, 67% of this track is at full throttle.
Right. So, historically, we've heard a lot the last sort of 2 years about this Alpine car maybe not being the highest horsepower program out there. The team's relatively confident because they've been quick here in the past. And Julien, you can talk to the fact that this is a pretty low power sensitivity track, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just below the average. So what's the power sensitivity? Basically, the team are going to run a series of simulations where they will increase or decrease the power, and they will see the effect on the lap time. And when you do that for all the track, you have a ranking, and these tracks sat just below the average. And the explanation is quite high in altitude, is nearly 1,000 meters, so the air density is quite low. So all that makes that the engine power or the power sensitivity is not as bad as Mexico, for example.
Yeah, so it's got some long straights. It's a lot of on-throttle time, but the power sensitivity is not as bad. And like I said, they've run well here in the past. Not a lot of curbs, which are a weakness of theirs. So cautiously optimistic, I think, is the way to put it.
Okay, we'll see how Alpine go. They have had a good upturn in form recently as well, in the points or just outside, or both scoring points on a weekend. So we'll see. They're sitting pretty comfortably as well in P6 in the standings. Ahead, of course, of this battle that we've got beneath them. We heard that Ocon radio as well saying, watch out for the Hasses, I'm coming to get you. We all enjoyed that. Netflix are probably rubbing their hands with glee. You must have heard your fair share of that kind of chat on the radio.
Yeah, oh, yes, I had a lot like this. But I mean, I don't think we made a big thing. At the end, the only thing he wanted to say was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. It didn't mean I'm going to go for it now. Because what you have to realize, in F1, all the team listen to everyone. Yeah. So I used to have like 3 or 4 teams I was deciding to listen. So I could hear the transmission between the engineer and the driver. So and Esteban knew that, so it was just basically a message for them saying, I'm going for you, so make sure when I brake, you move out of the way, basically. So
I absolutely love it. I love it. It's great to hear. And look, Haas, though, unfortunately for them, have found themselves at the bottom of the constructor standings. They are down in P10. As I said, just 16 points, though, separating P7 and P10. So a swing either way for any one of these teams could be important. Actually, worth also noting for you guys at home, Kevin Magnussen is not currently in Brazil, or he hasn't been to the track today at least. A cancelled flight meant that his arrival has been slightly delayed, but we will see him. We'll move to Alfa Romeo now as well. And they are now locked on points with AlphaTauri, who are at the moment resurgent. We'll wait to see, as we said earlier, whether they in fact will have form here or whether that is circuit specific. And Joe saying to me earlier, Hinch, it's going to go down to the wire. This battle is so important, isn't it?
It really is, and it's an interesting one because you're not scoring points every race for these teams. 1 point can make a difference. I mean, we know championships can come down to a single point, but I mean, these are tens of millions of dollars in these constructor positions. So a 1 point, an 8th place in a sprint race could be the difference. So you have to maximize. Alpha had great practice pace and qualifying pace in Mexico. The race pace didn't pan out. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, it's, like you say, it's a specific track to even have that pace, but even when they had the practice pace, they didn't get it done in the race. So I'd be a little bit nervous if I'm them coming here with how we've seen AlphaTauri kind of been stepping it up the last few rounds, but it is going to go down to the wire for sure.
How important is it, Julien? You know what it's like to work within these teams, to be personnel, counting on points to ensure that these millions of pounds are secured.
ultra important, especially coming towards the end of the season, especially on this track. Why? Because it's probably the last race of the calendar where you have weather, you have changeable condition, you can overtake, things happen, so it can go all in or becoming a complete disaster, you know what I mean? And I've been in this situation in the past with Alpha, with other teams. Arriving in Brazil, you have to fight for 1 point. So what will happen is that all their focus, all their strategy will be driven towards Haas, covering Haas, making sure Williams and AlphaTauri are not taking too many points. So you change completely your focus on the race, focusing on your direct competitor, because it's so important. As James said, you're talking about tens of millions at the end for one single point. So for a team, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? The pressure, the intensity must be so much. And it's a sprint weekend as well. Looking to Williams, who are at the top of this pile at the moment, P7 for them. Congratulations to James Fowles, by the way, on the birth of his baby too. Williams, how do you think they're going to go here, Hinch? Obviously, we saw that straight line speed paying off in Mexico, but perhaps not quite translating to the kind of pace that lit up the timing sheets, purple sector in practice.
But at the same time, we saw points scored in Qatar. I think Alex Albon's on 3 consecutive point-scoring races,
Correct.
race weekends. So that's huge. And look, from what we've seen, whether it's kind of the upper midfield or the lower midfield, week to week, I have no idea who's going to be at the top of those piles. You know, it's been such a mixed bag, but they're on a great run. So yeah, traditionally you wouldn't look at this place necessarily and like peg it as a Williams track, but you wouldn't have at Qatar either.
No, they are surprising themselves as well. When you speak to them on a Friday or perhaps, you know, coming into a Saturday, they are going, oh, we didn't know we'd do this either, but we're loving it anyway from Williams. And on Logan Sargent's side of the garage, he has got 3 more race weekends, indeed 4 more races if you count our sprint race, to score points, Julien. The pressure's on, isn't it, for him, just to maintain that seat, to get that seat for Williams?
Absolutely. It's very difficult for him because he wants to show he has the speed, but you need to always show in F1, you know. People have a very short memory. They don't remember what you did like 5 or 6 races ago. They remember what you did last race. So it will be a constant pressure. And unfortunately for a driver, James, you will know, when you're under maximum pressure all the time, what happens? You're more prone to mistake. And unfortunately, that's what happens. So it's a tricky situation, but...
And, you know, he's here, a track he hasn't raced at. And then we go to Vegas, a track nobody's raced at. But again, you're learning, so it's tough. I mean, Abu Dhabi's probably the last good chance he has to try to get another point. But he still needs to have good, clean weekends for the next 2.
Oh, pressure's on, isn't it? Absolutely. Speaking of pressure, it's time for us to make our predictions. Julien, here we go.
Me first.
Would you like to go first as a newcomer, or would you like to listen to ours and then go?
I go first. I
go-
try my chance. Poker, go
I
gambling.
love it. Go on.
Can I have 2 choices? Or?
A choice for the sprint race and the Grand Prix?
Well,
You do a
No, you
podium.
can't have 2 choices for first place.
Well, no, you got to pick your top 3.
Yeah,
top 3.
Your podium,
Well,
please.
it's
For the
getting more and more difficult. Okay.
That's the point.
Come on, let's go. I put my money on the Norris winning. That's a big one. Why not?
I love that.
Everything can happen. Norris top 3, Lewis and Max.
Okay, so that's your top 3, but you are going to say a Norris win.
Yes, Norris win, definitely.
Whoa, there we go. Hinch.
I actually had the same top 3 in a different order. So
Okay.
I'm going to go Max.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to go Lewis. I'm going to have Norris 3rd.
Okay, I'm going to go for the same top 3, but I'm going to say a Lewis win, his first since Saudi 2021, at a place he loves. I'm going to say Lando Norris P2, sorry, that elusive win, still not quite there for him, and then a Max P3.
Bold strategy, Cotton.
It would
Let's
be
see.
fun, wouldn't it? That would be a fun race.
It would be great. I think it's going to be a good race either way.
I do as well. I'm
It's
really
always a
excited
good
for this
race.
one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Julien, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hinch, thank you very much for joining us as well. That was your weekend warm-up, though. Let's take a look at the schedule for this, our last sprint weekend of the 2023 season. And here's how it all shapes up. We are on air for pre-FP1 at 11:15, and we'll be giving you all the action in our 1 hour of practice, a very important hour of running. We'll then be with you for our pre-qualifying show. That's at 2:30, ahead of qualifying at 3. Pre-shootout, yes, Sprint Saturday. We will be on air at 10:45 to build up to that one. Our pre-sprint race show will be starting at 14:50, with the race starting at 3:30 p.m. And then on Sunday, our pre-race show will begin at 1 p.m. with the Sao Paulo Grand Prix starting at 2 p.m. And of course, your post-race show coming immediately after that as well. Well, big thanks to James Hinchcliffe, to Julien Simon-Chautemps, and to Nadine Bart-Williams as well, who was asking questions in the pen for us. This is shaping up to be a classic weekend. We'll see you on air for a sprint weekend here in Sao Paulo.